Multiplying rational numbers. We should be turned into your workbook pages 311 through 314. So go ahead and open up to page 312 because that's where we're actually starting. If you remember to multiply fractions, okay, all you have to do is multiply straight across. Remember to simplify where you can. Examples 1, 2, and 3 are right there in your book. The first problem, you have two positive numbers, and the answer ends up being positive. In the example 2, you are multiplying to a whole number, and then the fraction is negative. So since the whole number is positive, your answer is going to be negative, okay? And then remember to turn the 2 into an improper fraction by putting it 2 over 1. Number 3, you have two fractions. One is negative, so your answer is therefore going to be negative. Let's get started. On page 312, at the bottom of page 312, you have these got it questions. Okay, let's go ahead and multiply straight across. Pause your video when you're ready for your answers. Push play. Okay, so A was 3/10. B, you should have gotten a negative 8 over 3, which can simplify to negative 2 2/3 because the negative 4 makes your answer negative. C, your answer is positive because you have a negative times a negative. Okay, let's move on. Now we have mixed numbers. Okay, so guys, we have to do improper fractions. So here you can see the 1/2 times the 4 2/5. They changed that to improper, which is 22 over 5. Notice the trick that they're doing. What is all that? They're slashing out the 2 and the 22, and they're changing it to 1 and 11. Well, I'll show you how that's done with our examples. The first thing we're going to do for these got it questions at the bottom of page 313 is part D. We're going to change 8 4/9 to improper. So that becomes 72 plus 4, which is 76. Now, the trick that I told you on the previous, that I would show you from the previous screen, this is that trick. Now, originally, we would have to take 1 times 76, which gives you 76, and then 4 times 9, which is 36. Well, guess what? Both of these are even numbers, and you would eventually have to simplify, okay, this fraction. Well, have fun simplifying that fraction. So if we just take it back to the original problem, and we can actually simplify, we can factor out a 4 out of here and a 4 out of here. So when we do that, 4 divided by 4 is 1. 76 divided by 4 is 19. So notice the location of these numbers in which we are simplifying. They're not a part of the same fraction, and they are diagonal from each other, okay? So now all we're left to do is multiplying 1 times 19 over 1 times 9, which is definitely easier to work with than 76 over 36, okay? So 9 goes into 19, that's 2 times with, which is 18 with 1 left over. So our answer is 2 1/9. Okay? Let's change E to improper. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16. And then 3 over 1 to make that improper. Okay. So let's go ahead and simplify here instead of at the end. We can actually simplify because 3 over 3 makes 1, guys. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, so once we factor out, because they are diagonally from each other, we can do this. Now all we have is 16 times 1 over 1 times 1, which is just 16. Finally, look at F. We have a negative times a negative, which gives us a positive, okay? So over here, it's going to be a positive answer. Let me go ahead and write these down since I forgot to earlier. All right, so we have 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 7, well, that's negative 15 over 8. Then we have to multiply that to this improper fraction, which is 5 times 2 is 10 over 12 over 5. Now, I can immediately see some relationships between these diagonals created. Okay, I'm going to factor out a 5 right there. once I factor out that 5 divided by 5 is 1, 15 divided by 5 is 3. I can also factor out a 4 out of here. So 12 divided by 4 will be 3, 8 divided by 4 will be 2. So now the new numbers that you're actually multiplying are as follows. So we end up getting positive 9 over 2, which is then 4 1/2. Okay? If you wanted to take 15 times 12, by all means, go ahead. But I would rather simplify during the process because it's easier to handle. On page 314, let's go ahead and do these guided practice questions, 1, 2, and 3. I know you can do 1 all on your own, okay? Number 2, I think you can do on your own. But for number 3, let me at least help you get set up. Do the improper fraction for 2 1/4. So we take 4 times 2 is 8, 8 plus 1 is 9. So you have 9 over 4 times 2 over 3. Okay, now you can actually go ahead and solve that, or you guys can actually factor, because 9 and 3, okay, you guys can factor out, and the 4 and the 2 also have a relationship that you can factor. But I'm going to let you guys go ahead and solve these on your own, so pause your video for now, solve them, and then push play when you're ready for your answers. Okay, here's your answers. So for number 1, that was pretty easy. You could have, for number 2, if you found it easy to factor out a 4 between the 4 and the 8, okay, that made life a lot easier, and you realize that a negative times a negative is a positive, so you get 2 9ths. Number 3, okay, from the beginning I told you that you guys could factor out of all of those numbers. So the 4 and the 2, you can factor out 2. Between the 9 and 3, you can factor out the 3. You end up getting 3 halves, which is simplified to 1 1/2. If you have any questions, please come and let me know. Otherwise, we're moving on to word problems. All right, turn back, or actually just look up at the top of your paper at example 5. Now, here's where we get into word problems. I want you to notice humans sleep about 1/3 of, right there, that key word, okay? Key word for multiply. That's what we realize, or should realize, that when we are taking a fraction of another number, we're actually multiplying. Okay, so they multiply through this model for you, and they show you how to simplify and all that stuff, and they give you the answer. Now, we're going straight to practice. Guided practice down at the bottom. Number 4. The weight of an object on Mars is about 2/5 its weight on Earth. So, how much would an 80.5 pound dog weigh on Mars? All right. So the weight of, okay, of an object, because of that we're taking the weight of another object, we're actually going to multiply. So let's set it up on our paper. Since we have a mixed number, we're going to have to change it to improper. 2 times 80 is 160. So that would be 161 over 2, and then 2 over 5. Bring that down. So I can immediately see this right here. Okay, so those we can factor out because 2 over 2 is technically 1. So essentially, we're just taking 161 times 1, and then 1 times 5. Now all we have to do is divide in order to change that improper fraction to a mixed number. Okay, so off to the right of our paper, or somewhere where you have room, let's set up our division algorithm. 5 goes into 16 3 times. That gives us 15. Subtract. 5 goes into 11 2 times, and there's going to be 1 left over. Okay, so that means let's finish this up with a statement. You say that an 80, we'll just say the dog weighs 32.5 pounds on Mars. Okay, so the dog weighs 32.5 pounds on Mars. If you have any questions or you're struggling, please come and see me. I will be glad to help. Otherwise, go to the next slide for your assignment. On page 315, I need you to complete numbers 1 through 13. It's not going to be that hard, so don't panic, okay? Just make sure you take your time to answer all the problems, all right? Let me know if you have any questions.